We talked a little bit about paid inclusion. Right now, it used to be that MSN used Yahoo's paid inclusion. They turned it off. Google has never had paid inclusion. They have free product inclusion in Frugal if you sell products, but it's not a paid inclusion product. And Jeeves / Teoma, which is their back end, has discontinued their paid inclusion program. So really the only paid inclusion program out there right now is the Yahoo paid inclusion program. There's two versions of it. One is for smaller marketers who just pay on a per URL basis plus a CPC. And then there's for larger marketers, there's something called XML paid inclusion, which is called Search Submit. Essentially, you create like a spreadsheet file of every page on your site that you want included, and you dump it in either directly to Yahoo or through a reseller like ourselves or somebody else.
Where do the natural results appear?
Excuse me?
Where those results appear on
The paid inclusion results show up as if they were algorithmic. So
where? First listing, third,
wherever they believe they will, wherever they belong, essentially. You get no guarantee of position with paid inclusion. All you're guaranteed is that you're in there. It's sort of like the lottery, right? You got to be in it to win it. So
theoretically be on the 5th page with the paid inclusion.
you could theoretically be on the 25th page or 150th page. So, but you only pay on a per-click basis for the paid inclusion. Paid inclusion is really only designed to make it more frictionless for you to be in the search engine if you've got a particularly poor site from an SEO perspective. So if you've got some of the problems, which we'll talk about later, with your site that are stopping the search engines from finding the content and understanding the relevancy of that content or the topic of that content, etc., and therefore you're not showing up, paid inclusion gives you a little bit more control, XML paid inclusion in particular, because you can tweak your title tags a little bit, you can tweak your descriptions, and you can sort of make sure you're in there in the optimal way to give yourself the best chance of showing up there. But it doesn't allow you to really manipulate the results. There's some fine-tuning you can do, but there's not a tremendous amount of leeway there because there are guidelines to the XML paid inclusion that say you can't stray too far in paid inclusion against what your site actually looks like. But we talk about that more tomorrow. If we talk about the components, most of you are pretty familiar with the components of search engine marketing. The titles are usually a larger font. They're the clickable element. The descriptions are showing up under the title, and then you'll see the URL. So this is the stuff that you guys see all the time when you do your searches. You can see that in some cases for queries they don't even put commercial paid search results at the top. Sometimes they just put them down the right rail. Interestingly, for both paid and algorithmic results, they bold whatever it is that you searched on in any time it shows up in the copy. And that's important to remember as we talk about both paid and algorithmic search moving forward. Yep.
About 2 months ago, I noticed that Google has begun digging into your content a good bit to pick its descriptions. Instead of taking, used to it would be the first sentence or so. Now it's like the first paragraph sentence. Any advice on how it's determining where your content starts to pull from the description?
What Google has done in changing its algorithm, and they do it all the time, they're basically deciding that it used to be that sometimes the engines would even use your meta description tag, which we talk about this afternoon. Now very few of them use it unless they can't find anything else. Then they went to just using opening paragraph, like they would just start with whatever it thought the beginning of your body copy was and use that. The reason Google made that change is now they're actually analyzing the full body copy and trying to find the segment of the body copy that it believes is most relevant to the query. So it's actually going to move around, even on the same page, because the same page may be relevant for, let's say, 3 different search queries. So let's say it comes up in the top 10 for 3 different search queries. It may use a different snippet for all 3 search queries, because what it's going to do, it's going to dig within the body copy and try to determine which snippet is actually illustrating your relevance most clearly to the searcher. So it sort of picks that snippet. Sometimes it does a good job, sometimes it does a horrible job, but that's what it's trying to do, is it's trying to find the portion of the body copy that is in fact most relevant.
You say you're appearing under your title description often, perhaps you're not doing a good job with your content?
I'm not sure what your question is.
It's not utilizing the title description, the meta description. It's using that more often and not pulling
From the copy?
phrases from the copy.
Yeah.
You have a content issue.
You may. I mean, you know, although there are cases where you might be very happy to have it use your meta description tag, but generally it falls back on the meta description only when it's having problems, you know, finding good body copy on the page. I mean, you can see in a Yahoo search results, which I'll occasionally call a SERP, or a search engine results page. That's one of those acronyms. You can see how for a screenshot of like an 800 by 600, there's very little algorithmic even showing, right? I mean, the vast majority of the real estate is paid listings. And that's really Yahoo trying to maximize the monetization that it gets from a SERP or from a search results page. So they're going to do that because you know, for commercial query like domain registration, in particular, you'll probably get equally relevant results in the paid or algorithmic results. So you can sort of see where Yahoo's coming from in really putting the vast majority of real estate on a page in the paid environment. This is what MSN looks like now. It'll change a little bit in October, but it won't change too dramatically. The new paid search size of copy will be Google lengths. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. But essentially, you know, a little bit shorter title, a little shorter description. And then they've got their own Spider-based engine. Search engine Spider is what comes out and grabs the information from your site, such as, you know, your body copy and your meta content. We'll talk about that shortly. You know, you think about a vertical portal like business.com. They've got their featured listings as well. So you know, everybody in the search business needs to pay their bills, right? So they're all trying to put those highest paying, highest yielding paid results up there, particularly if they're relevant, so that they can, you know, charge you marketers for that. You know, here's a screenshot of the Verizon Super Pages, and they sell paid listings in a couple of different places. They sell them, you know, these are actually paid advertisers, and so are the sponsored links down the right rail. And they're sold on different programs. But again, more places that you can buy advertising. Shopping.com is a search engine that's really purely for shopping. So they tend to be very price and review oriented. So that, again, the way the SERP or search engine results page looks is very different. Canoodle is a tier 2 pay-per-click engine. It's slightly smaller. It doesn't get a lot of direct searches, but you know, they've experimented with some interesting things, like allowing marketers to actually supplement their listings with little logo icons. So you know, the question for you might be, you know, picking the engines. Based on the slide that we showed earlier, the pie chart that showed the relative market share of the different search engines, you can sort of see that there's a small number that have a very large percentage of the market share. So, for example, if you target Google, which powers itself, plus AOL, plus Earthlink, and whose paid ads power Ask Jeeves, you know, you can cover a lot of ground there. You know, Yahoo powers itself, plus is currently backfill for MSN, but MSN is going to move by the end of the year over to its own paid search platform. So it's not either or. You know, to really correctly execute on search marketing, it's just a matter of finding the right balance. It used to be that, you know, organic SEO people only really focused on Google. They were like, you know, obsessed with Google. It was all about getting high Google rank, and that was because Google has, you know, probably about a 65% share of algorithmic search or organic search. So, having a win there is pretty powerful, but you can't really ignore Yahoo or MSN or even Teoma to some extent, because they still have some slice. So you have to balance your energy sort of in relative weight to the size of the slice in the engine.